Hello everyone, this is Tanya from TK Sewing Machine and Repair, and I get asked a lot of questions, and so instead of just answering a question over and over again, I decided I would do a video on this topic, and it is how to oil your sewing machine. So this is a Singer 328, very similar to a lot of other vintage sewing machines out there, and I'm going to show you how to oil it. So I've already taken the nose cover off right here, and where did I put it? There it is. So this one comes off with a little thumb screw. Just unscrew it and pop this off. I have removed the two screws on top of this machine, and I'm going to remove the top cover, and this reveals the inside of the machine. So, well, just dropped all my parts. So this is what the inside of the top machine looks the machine looks like. You have a rubber belt right here. Most machines will have that, and you have your drive shaft. This one has a gear right here. It also has a gear to run the cam reader, and then there's bushings in here. So my advice is, whenever you're oiling a machine, is to oil wherever metal meets metal. And so there's a little hole right here. Going to drop some oil in there. Going to put oil in all of these little places that metal meets metal. Okay, and so the gears I use, oil. You want to use sewing machine oil, and if you don't have any sewing machine oil, you can get a bottle of Zoom on Amazon, and it comes in a 4-ounce bottle. It has a little spout. You don't have to buy a fancy can like this. I use this because I work on several sewing machines a day, and but you have to use sewing machine oil. You don't want to use any other type of lubricant, because it is the viscosity of it isn't right. It could also damage the machine. You don't want to use WD-40 at all. The only time you use WD-40 on a sewing machine is to get it unstuck. So where the gears are, I use a product called Tri-Flow. It's a clear synthetic grease. And I put, I don't know, a little dot, like a 1/4 of an inch dot. And I use a Q-tip and I rub it all into the gears. And also, I'm assuming you've already cleaned the machine. This machine has already been cleaned. I vacuum it out. You just never know what you're going to find in a sewing machine. So I vacuum out all the lint and the dust. And I also go through a process of washing my machines, which we're not going to cover here because most people aren't set up to do that. So vacuum the machine out, get all the dirt and residue out of the machine. And so this is the nose area. So wherever metal meets metal, put a drop of oil in. Now you can't use too much oil. The worst thing that's going to happen is that you're going to get oil that's going to drip down the needle or down the presser foot, and you're going to have to use a scrap piece of fabric until all that oil dissipates, which is fine. That's what I do, and my customers always comment that they have to do that when they get a machine that's been serviced by me. So oil all in here, and a lot of times this plate, the feed dog plate, will have screws holding it down, usually 2 right here. This one just snaps off. And so the most important thing about servicing a machine and making sure that this machine will run correctly and make a good stitch is to clean the feed dogs. Most likely there's going to be lint stuck in the teeth of the feed dogs. You can use a small brush. You can try to vacuum it out. You can use a little tiny screwdriver to shove it out, and to clean underneath the bobbin case. So we're just going to drop a little bit of oil in here. We're going to make sure the race, this round part, has a little bit of lubrication in it, so when the machine turns, that the bobbin case and the race are lubricated. So we're going to stick this back in here, close that, and then we're going to turn the machine over. This machine had a bobbin plate, not a bobbin plate, a bottom plate on it, and I have removed it. This one, the plate is with a screw. Sometimes the bottom plate has screws on the corners, or you can only remove this part of it. Each machine is different, but once again, wherever metal meets metal, put a drop of oil, and don't be afraid to over oil the machine wherever the metal is. And so we got it all oiled here, and the most important thing is that sometimes the motor is an internal motor like this one, or it's an external motor that is mounted on the back of the machine. You want to avoid getting oil on your belt because it'll cause the machine to slip. So after you completely and thoroughly oil the machine, then you want to run it. And that helps distribute all the oil in all the mechanisms. So we're going to run the machine. Okay, so you run the machine. If your machine has an external motor that's mounted on the back right here, run the machine for 3 or 4 minutes. Just run it and feel the motor. If the motor is still room temperature or just slightly warm, that is fine. Everything is fine. But if your motor gets hot or the machine is not running at full speed, you may have an issue with the motor, and then that's when you want to think about getting the motor replaced. But that is it. That is how you oil a sewing machine. And then when you're finished, you put all the pieces back together, and if it's a complicated process to take pieces off, take pictures as you go, so you'll know how everything goes back together, and you won't have any extra screws or parts laying around, because that's always troublesome, right? And put the nose guard back on. And I'll screw that on later, and put your presser foot back on. Run the machine. And dial in your tension, and then you should be ready to sew. If you have any questions, contact me on Facebook, TK Sewing Machine Repair, or like my page here on YouTube. I really appreciate your support, and happy sewing.